Hey everyone, this is Matt. It's another day in the garage, another hot, sweaty day, but since the last time I picked up the camera, I've gone ahead and bled the entire brake system. I went ahead and did the master cylinder and then hit all four corners, and I think I did that twice so that I kind of make sure that I get as much of it kind of flushed out as I could and get all the air out. I'll probably do another round once I've actually driven it for a little bit, just to, as the system is actually working and heating up and all that good stuff. So it's been sitting for a few days, so hopefully any other last of the air has kind of worked its way to where it'll easily be bled. That means I really could put this thing on the ground and drive it, but because it's been sitting around so long and I already know there's a lot of sketchy things in the engine bay, I want to go ahead and take care of a few maintenance items before we go driving this thing. Oil change, spark plugs, some other things like that. And then I did check the handbrake the other day and it was engaging in 3 clicks, which, it needs to be a little bit more than that. So I'm going to go ahead and pull the plug on the oil pan to go ahead and get the oil draining. And then I'm going to work on looking at the kind of adjusting the handbrake, see if we can get that to engage a little bit better. So yeah, we get those few things done, lower the car down. I'm gonna go through and check the spark plugs. I'm not gonna check timing and all that kind of stuff, because what little bit I have driven the car, that all seemed to be like it was gonna be fine, at least for what we're doing now. I'm not gonna mess with any of the coolant stuff. That will probably be a whole day or two in its own, trying to replace all the thermostats and temperature sensors and all that kind of stuff. So I'll save that for another day, but fingers crossed, don't run into any more issues, and we can get this thing started up today and maybe take it for a drive. I'm gonna go ahead and drain the oil into just a separate pan so that I can inspect it and see, what the oil looks like before it goes into my drain can. So I'll just go ahead and loosen this nut bolt and let it drain out, and then we'll probably just sit here for a few minutes, let all that come out. And they have cranked that on there. So I'm gonna get my breaker bar and go from there. It's like there's clearly been some leaking, possibly from around this drain plug, and somebody just tightened it on there as tight as they could, trying to stop that leak instead of just fixing it, probably getting a new lock washer. So now that's loose. I think I had mentioned this in my install video for the handbrake, but the the rear cable set that I got that was new was just a little bit shorter than the one I pulled off, and I don't think all that was due to the old cable stretching, because this is a pretty tight handbrake and I've loosened it up a little bit, but I think what I need to do is take kind of this clevis off that actually connects to the cable that goes to the back, and I've got about, I don't know, maybe a little less than ½ an inch worth of threads, but what I'll probably do is just pull that off and back it out, 3 turns maybe, and hopefully that gives us a little bit more wiggle room. But I do know there's quite a bit of tension in the rear set of cables. The parking brake does engage, but it definitely is tight, and the little mechanism that goes on the back of the drum, it doesn't fully engage before the brake engages, and a lot of that's probably because there's new brakes and stuff hasn't been seated. So I'm only going to back this maybe, like I said, 2 or 3 times, and when I do that, that should give a little bit more length to the cable that goes to the rear. And if I only pick up 1 or 2 clicks on the handbrake, it won't be the end of the world. We can adjust it as time goes on and as these brakes kind of get set in. So I need to pull that pin and try to get all that out, which I know was a pain when I did this before. So can't really film it, because by the time my hands are up there, that's all you would see. I'll pull it out and I'll check in when I got that done. I went ahead and got that loosened up, maybe about a 1/4 inch. I have no idea if that's going to be enough, but it'll be good enough, because it was engaging, and I probably need to make sure the back brakes are getting seated anyway, and eventually the transmission and stuff will be coming out, and it'll be easier to make some final adjustments there. So I'm cool with that for now, and looks like most of my oil has dripped out. I actually have a new plug, a magnetic plug I'm going to install. I'll go ahead and put that in and we'll lower down the car so we can start working on the engine bay. I've looked at the oil and it actually looks good. It smells fine. I didn't see any coolant or gas or anything like that in it. I did run my magnet around the bottom, and if I got anything, it was a couple small teeny tiny specks, but they might have been on the magnet before I even started. But I don't really see anything to be concerned about with the oil. The plug that was in the car was very, very smashed on, and there's actually 2 sets of crush washers, and this was leaking, but I mean, it's super deformed. So somebody had been just cranking the hell out of this thing when they were putting it on. So glad I went ahead and picked up a new one to replace it. Plus I went ahead and got one that's got the magnet built into it, and we could check that at each oil change. So yeah, this is done, and now I can go ahead and get the car down, and we'll start putting some fresh oil in and get a few small things done. And then hopefully the battery's charged up enough and we can try to get this thing started. Just about like everything else I'm finding on this car, Hercules or somebody with way more strength than I've got have zoned it, because they have over tightened absolutely everything on this car, and the oil filter was no exception. So I didn't really have a good tool that could crank on that tight enough without crimping the oil filter. So just using the old screwdriver, and I think I finally got it. Yeah, it's just starting to budge. So I should be able to get both hands on that now and try to work that off. Z-Car Depot, or maybe even Rock Auto probably, where I ordered parts a little while back, they actually had OEM oil filter, so I went ahead and just got that. So I'm going to get this guy twisted off. We'll go ahead and put a little bit of oil and lube up the seal on that one and get it screwed on just hand tight and a little bit more. And then I'm going to fill this with some 10W30. I think I've got some Valvoline ZR1. And I think I've read somewhere that these older engines like to have oil that has a high, I think it's zinc or copper content. Whatever, I'll put it on the screen. But basically, I just ran down to the auto parts store, and whatever they had that mentioned anything about that high content, that's what I got. So I think it was the Valvoline ZR1. And yeah, I'll get this thing topped off, but I need to go ahead and wrestle the rest of that filter off. So what I'm going to use is this Valvoline VR1, and it says it has a high zinc content, which is what I've read is kind of important for these older engines. And it, if you're looking for oil, it may say something about flat tappet engines. That's what I got, 10W30. So I'm going to put a little bit in the oil filter and then go ahead and get it threaded on, and then we'll go ahead and top off the engine. So while I let the oil finish topping off, I went ahead and pulled the rear spark plug just to kind of see where things are looking. And I mean, other than a little bit of oil on the plug itself, I don't really see that this is too, actually looks like they were replaced fairly recently, but I was just checking the gap on these just to see where it has been and kind of comparing that with the factory spec. And it's maybe a little bit more, because 0.035 inches is the high end, and this is just a little bit past that. So what I'll probably do is just go ahead and gap all my new spark plugs. And so I just got some NGK spark plugs here, and I will get those gapped at 0.035 or there a little about, which that one out of the box is almost dead on. So anyway, I'll go ahead and pull the rest of the spark plugs one at a time and install new ones and check the gap. And then I want to go around, and there's a few kind of random wires that I would really like to kind of look at and or replace and or at least protect with some electrical tape or something, because anytime the wire's been cut, that wire's going to get hot just from current flowing through basically a smaller wire at that point. So I'm going to go around. I've noticed a few of them as I've been working on the car, and I'll go ahead and get some of that taken care of. But yeah, I mean, I've noticed the radiator doesn't have, I can't see coolant in the radiator itself, but the overflow tank is actually, it's full to the top. So don't know what's going on with that. So I'll probably just take some of the coolant out of the overflow tank and put it back into the radiator. And I do have a new radiator cap because the seal on that one's gone bad. So once I have done that, my reservoirs for my master cylinder still look fine. I do need to probably get some air in the tires because I know that one of them was low when I took them off. And I'll probably try to roll this out of the garage before I start it. just because it's probably going to burn some oil, and I know a bunch of stuff's probably going to come out of the exhaust. Anyway, so let me get these spark plugs swapped out, and I'll check my oil level, and we're almost close to seeing if this thing will start after at least sitting at my house for almost 3 years.